Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, so we're going to start from the beginning? Okay. We don't need to retake the polls, though. Okay, all right.
All right, everybody, we're back. I'm sorry. We had some technical difficulties with our audio, so now we are back live. Hopefully you can all hear us. My name is Dan McCloy, and I'll be introducing you to our webinar today. We'll be discussing a simple approach to setting up structure in the home. This webinar is being brought to you by the Oregon Technical Assistance Corporation. OTAC has been providing training and technical assistance to professionals and citizens concerned about intellectual and developmental disabilities since 1984. Participants in today's forum can submit questions through the chat box on the webinar console anytime during the presentation. We'll have time for a short question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Now, this webinar is being recorded to share with others who weren't able to attend live today, and your telephones and microphones have been muted for this call. With us today is Stephanie Hunter. Stephanie is a behavior specialist for OTAC. She has 12 years experience in residential, vocational, foster, proctor care, and family home settings. Stephanie is a trainer, mentor, facilitator for OTAC's Behavior Mentorship Program, as well as a certified trainer of OIS and a Person Futures Planning Facilitator. So I want to thank you for being with us, and I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie.
All right, hi everyone. So we're going to start from the beginning again. All right, so welcome. So we're going to talk about structure in the home, and we're going to look at this from a more simple approach. Some of you are pros at this. Some of you might be just hearing this for the first time. So, and we've already taken our polls. So for those of you that didn't hear me say this, when I use the term parent, I mean parents, I mean grandparents, aunts, uncles, older brothers and sisters, foster providers, anybody who's in that role of supporting kids. So with structure, again, sometimes you might hear the term structure and it might cause you to have feelings of angst. And I'm hoping that through this presentation you will see structure in a different way. See that structure is not laminate and Velcro and completely, modeling your home. That this can be done in a more simple, quick, and efficient way. So some of the things that we're going to go over today is to look at structure and the fact that you're already providing structure. So I'm hoping that as we go through today, you're going to see stuff and you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm doing that, or oh, that's a good idea, and that will enhance this thing that I'm already doing. The other thing I want you to understand about structure is that you are structure. You are your child's walking, talking schedule. They are reading your signals. They're watching how you interact with the environment. They're looking at how the environment moves and flows around you to gain information. They're looking at you to learn what just happened, what's happening now, and what's happening next. The other thing that we do for our kids naturally is we are their interpreter to the world, and then we help interpret the world to them. So when we're going to talk about components of structure, harness what we already know about our kids and start from there, and look at how to enhance communication, independence, and successful transitions using some of these simple approaches to structure. One of the other things that I want to say about structure is sometimes the argument that I hear is that using structure and visual supports isn't preparing our kids for the, quote, real world. And I really want to push back against that. I want to argue that in the real world we are surrounded by and rely on structure. And that structure is not going to limit our kids from using spoken words if they're able. It's not going to create dependence versus independence. It's not giving in to difficult behavior. It's an essential part of everyone's life. By providing structure is simply an accommodation for our kids. And by providing that accommodation, we help them to navigate their world successfully. We create equality. We level the playing field for them. So these are just some of the examples of structure that we rely on every day. We have our notifications, we use maps or GPS. Some of us are chronic to-do list makers. We have the environment tells us which buttons to press. We have lines in the road that keep us safe. Even our coffee and our shampoo tells us how to interact with it using structure. And eventually we don't need that anymore because we've learned coffee's hot. We've learned how to shampoo, but the structure is still there for those of us that need it. And then this bulletin board here in the corner. For some of us that might look like chaos, and for some of us that looks just right. So the point I want to make there is about individualization of structure. Structure is not going to look the same for you than it is for your kid, for your neighbor, for your family members. Structure it meets you where you're at and helps you to learn and grow from that place. It's what works for you. So we took the poll question already, and the question we asked was, think about a part of the day that's most difficult for you and your child. And what we heard was that morning and evening routines and being out in the community and during transportation. So we'll try to, you'll have time at the end for questions, and we'll try to steer some of the information in that direction as we're going through today. Why I ask you to think about that most difficult part of your day is next slide, that part of your day is where your child might be missing information. And if you think about how you feel when you are missing information, you feel anger or sadness, you feel confusion, anxiety, you're more likely to get into a power struggle, difficult behavior, challenging behaviors. So the key piece, the takeaway here is that when you encounter that, if that first part of your day, which is the morning routine, is where things are difficult, then that structure is going to help provide the missing information. And our kids want us to be happy with them. They want to do well. And when there's a struggle, chances are that what's happening is they don't have enough information to be successful. And using some of maybe the difficult behaviors that you might see, or those power struggles that we get into, sometimes at the heart of that is, I need more information, and by pushing back, I can get that information. So how we're going to look at structured visual supports today is we're going to look at a few key areas and ideas about how to approach it, with the understanding that structure fills in the gaps of missing information. It helps to ease those difficult times. It helps to lower everyone's stress, and that is always a good thing. So we're giving that information in that difficult time, but we're also, what is going to happen is that missing information and how you provide that is actually, you're going to see that you and your kids are going to use those skills in other parts of your day. So when we close out today, you're going to hear me say this again. Think about that difficult time of your day and really just focus on one thing at a time, because what's going to happen is the skills that you and your child learn in that area are actually going to trickle into other parts of your day. So we're going to go more in depth into these areas. We're going to talk about level of representation for visual structure. We're going to talk about what are called the all-important questions, and these will give you a foundation for meeting your child where they're at. We'll go more in depth into visual systems that might help support independence, and then looking at the most efficient method that's easy to create and use every day. So first, we're going to talk about level of representation. So level of representation is, when I had talked earlier about how we are our kids' interpreters to the world, and then we help interpret the world back to them. And when we're looking at filling in, using structure to fill in the gaps of missing information, we want to make sure that we're using the level of representation that our kids understand the most, that they're going to be most successful at. So some of the things that we'll look at is we'll talk about objects. Before I move into talking about these, what I want to say is that all levels of representation have a place. They're all useful and relevant depending on the situation. And we'll go more in depth into that as further in, but I don't want you to look at these areas and think, oh, my child is only using photos. We use all of us, everybody here uses all of these all the time to give us information about the environment. So when I talk about level of representation, what I want you to think about is, depending on, in the morning routine, my child might need more objects to help them get through. But in the evening routine, which is maybe the least stressful time, we can, words work fine. So it really is meeting your child where they're at and what they need in that moment. So objects can be part of an actual object, a small version or miniature of an object, or the actual object itself. Images can be photos, pictures cut off of packaging. You can search for images through the internet or just your simple drawings. And then line drawings are going to be maybe those, again, that could just be your simple drawing. It could be something that you get from like a software program as well. We're not going to go into that today, but line drawings, there's different programs that you can use to pull up line drawings. Some of your kids will use these programs in their school, and you can maybe ask the teacher for some of those pictures that they're using successfully at school to use at home. We won't go into those today. And then words, and when I think of words, I think of signs, gestures, sign language as words as well. So our nonverbal communication, how we use our gestures and signs, and then also the words that we say. So we're going to go into talking about the all-important questions next, and then we'll show you some examples of how you can use all these levels of representation in different ways. So these are the all-important questions, and the backstory on the all-important questions for those of you that like to know where stuff comes from. These were originally called the Big Five questions, and these come to us from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and their autism program. But this is not autism specific. These are the questions that we answer for ourselves automatically when we walk into a room or get up in the morning. We are able to typically answer these questions for ourselves pretty quickly, but as the guide for our children, we may need to can you still hear me? It's telling me I have technical difficulties. Okay, cool. So as a guide for our kids, we may need help to help them answer these questions merely because of, because they're kids, but also because of the missing information. So the questions are, where am I going? Who will be with me? What am I doing? How much am I doing? What does finished look like? And what's next? So let's explore these a little bit further. So answering the question, where am I going, it gives your child information about the location of where they're going both within and outside of the home. So where am I going could be the kitchen, where am I going could be the park. So it's not a going somewhere. It's just a, where does my physical body need to be in this moment. One of the things about where am I going and giving that information is, sometimes our kids just don't want to go. So we tell them, we're going to the kitchen, and they understand us perfectly, but they're still missing some information, which we'll get into next, which is the what am I doing. So if you're getting some resistance, you might use what's called a first and then system. And so this is just an example. These are images that I pulled right off of Microsoft Images. So this represents first we're going to read, and then we're going to go to the park. So giving that information in a visual way, and first and then is a concept that's taught in school, so it's not going to be foreign to your kidding. So giving them that information, so you might not want to go to the kitchen, but when you see that first we go to the kitchen, then we're going to have a snack, well, maybe I'm more likely to want to go to the kitchen. So that first and then can really help you with be successful in transitions, but also just provide that information. Our words can provide the exact same answer to the question, where am I going? And sometimes we might say to our kids, come on, let's go. And if they haven't been able to pick up the environmental cues to let them know where they're going, you might get some resistance. So a simple phrase of first we're going to go to, first we're going to read and then we'll go to the park can help with some difficult transitions. And another thing that you're seeing here too is, maybe reading is not a preferred activity, but the park is. When you're introducing the concept of first and then to your kids, it's really helpful to have the then part of it be something that they like. And when we push back on the quote real world, well, in the real world we do things sometimes that we don't like to do, and then we do things that are fun afterwards. So that's not an anti-real world concept. That's in fact what we typically do. First work, then play. So there's an example of an object routine. So this object schedule gives the information of where this child is going. So the toilet paper roll represents first we're going to go to the bathroom. This represents shower. So then we're going to shower. The zipper here, if you can tell that's a zipper, represents and we're going to get dressed. We're going to brush our teeth, and then we're going to watch TV. So here, as you can see, again, TV is the preferred activity, and we just got a few things we need to do before we get to TV. So these can really help with those transitions and to answer the question, where am I going? Who will be with me? And our kids don't always need the answer to this question. This falls in that optional area where, but I find that for a lot of kids, knowing who my point person is, who's my interpreter to the world, who's my walking, talking schedule right now, or who's coming over, who's going to be with me when you go out to the store, those are really important things for our kids to have the answer to. We're having an environmental issue right now. Sorry, everyone. Okay, good. Who will be with me? So it helps our child understand who's going to be meeting their needs in that moment, and it helps them to see who they're going to spend time with in their day. So here's an example of a first-then schedule. First we're going to have dinner, and Grandma's going to be coming over. So, or maybe dinner with Grandma. So this could represent both of those things. This is actually when my daughter, she has been raised on structure, and using schedules was something that she's been doing from a really young age, and so she wanted to start being more independent and making her own schedule. So this is one of her first, when she first learned, hey, writing is cool and it gives me power. She wanted to start making her own schedule. So you can see here that she's incorporated her dad and spending time with him on the schedule, and that he's a part of this routine. So putting the who will be with me and answering that question actually on the schedule can be really helpful. The other thing about who will be with me that can be helpful is sometimes I hear from parents, I don't want to leave the house, but my child, I want to take a break at home. I don't want to have to leave my house to have a break. But when I'm home, my kids are all over me. So sometimes that who will be with me could be as simple as a picture of the adult in charge on the refrigerator. And this is going to be a teaching area, but we'll be letting our kids know the person in charge, older brother, dad, grandma, babysitter, is the person in charge. So you can go hide behind a locked door and read a book for 10 minutes and take care of yourself, and somebody else is the who's in charge. So sometimes that visual support is allowing you to be at home and have a break as well. So what am I doing? So we go from where am I going, potentially needing to know who's going to be with me when I go there, and next is what am I doing? So this helps our kids understand what task or activity is going to be occurring, what they're going to be performing. So some examples that we have here. Lists. I love lists. Lists are so simple. You can pull a receipt out of your glove box. You can use your hand. You can use sticky notes. Lists are an incredible tool. And what I find is that even kids that are not yet readers, if you make a list and you tell them what's on the list, they're good. You might put, on your little shopping list here, you could draw some little pictures of the things, but sometimes the list itself, the where am I going is answered by store here at the top, and then the what am I doing is answered by the shopping list here. Here's an example of a very simple approach to structure. This is just our drawings, and again, our kids, that we don't have to have anything too fancy to provide that missing information. They're very forgiving of our drawings. So, we're going to get in the car, we're going to go to the store. After the store, we're going to have ice cream before we go home. So this is, again, something you can keep these in your car and make structure wherever you're at. This is an example of setting up the physical environment to let you know what you're doing. Well, what are we doing? We're going to make chicken fingers. And so this is set up to, where the chicken, the flour, the egg, and the breadcrumbs, and then the tray where they go on. So if my schedule says, or somebody says to me, we're going to go to the kitchen, well, in the kitchen, I get to see that what I'm doing is I'm making chicken fingers. So sometimes the environment will answer that question. How much am I doing, or what's expected of me, is more of that breakdown of, so you get where you're going, you know what you're doing. Now, kind of how much am I doing? How big is this task? So this breaks out the activity or task into clear steps. So again, with our chicken fingers example here, the activity itself provides the answer to the how much am I doing. Well, when all this chicken here is gone, then, and this tray here has all the chicken on it, then the measure of that activity is very, very clear. Using our list example, crossing things off the list let us know how much am I doing. It helps us get to the end of that list. It's a clear measurement. This example here with the toilet paper, this answers the question, how much toilet paper? What's expected of me when I go to the bathroom? Not to use the whole roll, to maybe, tear off, 3 to 5, depending on your, again, meet people where they're at, how much toilet paper they need. But this line here of blue painter's tape, real simple structure, lets someone know, oh, only this much toilet paper, not the whole roll. What does finished look like? So we know where we're going, we know what we're doing, we know who's going to be with us, and we have that breakout, we have that measurement of how much we're doing. But how will I know when I'm done? What does finished look like? So some examples are, timers, classic. Timers, all of us have magic phones now, and they usually have timers on them. So that might be something that we could use. These wonderful tools here, the timer with the red here, these are called time timers. And if this is something that you want to purchase, you can purchase that from timetimer.com. But also on the, I'm not sure if the Android has it, but the I know the iPhone and iTouch, you can get the app for the time timer as well. And so how this time timer works is it tells you it's a measurement of time that's visual. So you can say, when the red's all gone, it's time to. So it can help with waiting for something. It can help for how long you need to endure the torture of whatever it is that we're doing to our kids that they don't want to do. So the time timer, this red recesses into this timer. For my daughter, when she was in first grade, I actually bought one of these time timers for the classroom, and because transitions were very difficult for my child, even with a schedule, even with visual structure. So I gave it to the teacher and just let her know, I want you to use this with all the kids in the classroom. So I don't want it to be, my daughter's timer. I want it to be the timer that all the kids rely on to let them know what the transitions are. So, my daughter needs it. The other kids are going to think it's kind of cool. And that's exactly how it played out. So the kids would watch the red go away and do the countdown, and so my daughter had what she needed, and the kids had, you know, this extra benefit of her having this timer in the classroom. So, but for when you're on the go, the app is really, really helpful for measuring time. On the Android, it's called, I know they might have a time timer one now, but I know for sure they have one called Easy Kid Timer, and it's the same concept of a countdown timer. So our wonderful list, again, we love lists. The list is all crossed off. So I know I'm finished because the list is finished. This is an example of just building structure, you know, in the moment. So the steps of going to the bathroom. We're going to go to the bathroom, we're going to use toilet paper, we're going to flush, get the little flusher right there, we're going to wash our hands, we're going to turn off the lights, all done. And here you know, this person liked cars, so we can put things that our kids like to see. You know, again, kids of all ages. This was actually for an adult. So, you know, like, oh, hey, I want to look at that because it's got my favorite character on it, or I want to look at that because it's you know, interesting to me or colorful. So we can enhance those supports and make them fun. So finished, what this, you know, box here, what this represents is sometimes in schools, this is a concept that might be taught where I complete a task and I place it inside of a box. So the concept of finished, sometimes having a place to put things that you're finished is really helpful. Thinking of the example of cleaning your bedroom, not a preferred activity, but if you have a clear finished, so all the Legos go in this box that have the clear picture of Legos on them. All the crayons go in this box that have the clear picture of crayons on them. You can create that concept of finished to help your kid be successful with cleaning their bedroom. An example of a family that I supported, they had a hot tub, and they didn't want their grandson to take food into the hot tub, and it was really hard for them to understand or help him to understand why you can't have food in the hot tub, and so it resulted in power struggles. He didn't have the information that he needed. So we had just a small dish tub with a plate inside of it that we put near the hot tub, and so we just taught him to, you know, oh, put your food here on this plate before you get in the hot tub. And then the food would be there when he got out of the hot tub. And he was like, oh, okay, why didn't you say so? Like, it became very clear to him, I have this, you know, confined space, there's a plate there, I know that plates are where food goes. So we gave him the information about where food goes before you get in the hot tub to give him the idea of finished and help him understand that. So, you know, again, it could be a box, it could be, you know, labeled bins, something that really helps clearly define that, you know, this is where this needs to go right now. What's next? So what's next is it helps our kids transition. It gives them the information about you're moving from one realm to another realm, and then the all-important questions may just start right all over again. So we're coming to the end of the where am I going, what am I doing, and we're moving into another realm. Ideally, this is going to be a preferred activity. In the real world, I'll put my quotes back up, we can't always provide that preferred activity, but we're going to do the best we can to follow up something that might be difficult with something preferred. So in this example, where am I going? We're going to the store. We followed our shopping list. What's happening next? Ice cream. This is an example of setting up a dressing routine. So put on your socks, put on your shoes, put on your jacket, and then the backpack represents what's next, which is that transition to the school bus. So for those of you that identified the morning routine as difficult, laying out the clothes from left to right, and then having maybe that last thing in the routine be that thing that lets you know the next thing is breakfast, the next thing is the bus, the next thing is the remote control, and you can go watch TV. So if they can kind of look at their routine laid out in front of them, like dressing, I don't like getting dressed, but I do like TV, and I can see at the end of this line of clothes is that remote control. All right, I'll play along. So this can really help give our kids that missing information, and they can see that at the end of the road there's something in it for them. So the all-important questions give us a foundation, and then we're going to talk about the visual systems that we might use. And we gave you some examples already and give you just a few more ideas and ways to think about this using visual systems, providing clarity and instructions within answering those all-important questions. So we might have our written or picture instructions and lists. We might provide what's called a product sample, which is a model of what you're going to be completing. We might use what's called a jig, which helps someone match shapes to a certain area. We might outline or highlight important information using color coding, labels, removing unnecessary parts or distracting parts. So here's some examples of visual systems. This is, again, it's really simple. Some of these are from the Boardmaker system that the schools usually use, and then some of these are just drawn in. So this is a visual system to give you information about washing your hands. This mouse here with this little blue dot, this is a real-life example. My daughter would she would right-click instead of left-click, and then the menu would pop up, and the mouse would, get thrown or slammed on the table, and it would become a very frustrating experience for her. She was missing information about how to be successful with a computer mouse. So I just cut out a little blue dot out of blue tape, and I put it on the mouse to show her where her finger needed to go. So this is a really simple example of how to help our kids be successful with something that's frustrating for them. She completely understands the left-click process now. She doesn't need that support anymore. So what you'll find is sometimes we put these systems in place and then they fade into something new. This is an example of a list routine for a shower. So this is laminated, for protection in the shower, but it just highlights all the steps of cleaning your body successfully in the bathroom. So that might be something that could be visual as well. You could have the pictures laid out on this. This is for someone where reading was just fine. Using Sharpies, we love Sharpies, unless they're creating damage to the environment. So keep them up on a high shelf. But markers, how much soap? So just putting a little Sharpie line on the soap container to show how much soap for creating independence around laundry. Where do I match this gray dot to? This Sharpie line right here. So we can highlight important information using visual systems to help create independence. Here's an example of using a jig for putting dishes away. So here's the match the shapes pretty much. So before and after here. Another good example that we don't have on here is placemats. Placemats can be really, really helpful to define what my space is when I sit at the table. So you could have a placemat that has your child's name on it. You could draw circles on the placemat that show where the plate go, where the cup go, where the utensils go. You can use placemats in different ways because the kitchen table might be where dinner happens, it might be where play happens, and it might be where homework happens. So you could have different placemats that represent homework, play, and meals. So when your child comes into the kitchen, they see the play placemat, they're going to be like, yay. When they see the homework placemat, they might not say yay, but they're like, okay, but I'll go with this. And then so that we can give our kids that information using a jig. And so picture instructions can be helpful. We can use our magic phones, again, to take pictures. We make the sandwich or we make the celery with peanut butter and raisins ahead of time. We take the pictures, and then we can just swipe through the pictures on our phone to show our kids the steps. Or we can print those pictures out and lay them out. Or we've taught our kids these steps, but all they really need to see is this last example. So we can go through this process in a couple different ways using a product sample. So some of the tools that you have available to provide visual structure and support, are already in your home. You can probably, turn your head to the left or right where it's sitting at your computer right now and see a lot of these things. Cardboard, file folders, and foam board can be used to create schedules. They can be used, you can use foam board is nice for our kids that might be at that object level of communication. So you can cut out some squares of foam board, and then you can packing tape down. So if you want your child to be able to let you know they want to color, packing tape down some crayons on a piece of foam board. So you have an object communication system just right there. You could do the same thing with cardboard, so it doesn't have to be foam board. Foam board has a little heft to it, so it can be helpful to add a little weight to it if that's necessary. File folders can be used. File folders you can use on the go. You can, make one for the car that has different images that you might need to get through a transportation routine. Scissors, tape, contact paper, so you don't need to have a laminator. Contact paper can provide the same laminating feature. And Velcro is handy. I know sometimes Velcro is, it gives people the shivers, but Velcro is nice when you want to, for example, if you want your child to let you know that they, choose different activities that you can put them on Velcro and have them like on a piece of cardboard, and then they can go up and point and let you know what they want, for example. And the Velcro is nice because you don't have to be there. You could have this up, and then they can pull it off of the Velcro and come and hand it to you for that spontaneous communication. Sticky notes. Keep sticky notes in your purse, keep them in your glove box, keep them in your back pocket, keep them in every drawer of the house. Sticky notes can help get you through some really tough situations. I use those with my daughter quite a bit and helped her get through some really difficult transportation issues when she was younger. She, whenever we would pull up to the home, she would expect to get out and go into the house, but sometimes we would be pulling up to the house to pick up Dad to go out to dinner after picking her up from childcare. And we couldn't have a nice dinner because she was so upset because she didn't understand that to her, you pull up to the house, you get out. She didn't understand that you can pull up to the house and wait for somebody to get into the car. I use sticky notes to help her understand, first stop at the house, then Daddy gets in the car, then we go eat. So I just put that on the dashboard and pointed it to her, helped her get through the learning process with that. So those can be really handy. Index cards can provide the same support as sticky notes. You can use magazines. Food ads are great for helping with food communication. Internet image searches. You can use parts of packaging. This was something else that I did with my daughter for food communication. I cut off the part of the macaroni and cheese box that had the image of macaroni and cheese on it, the waffle on the waffle box. So I didn't have to go print out a picture of it. I was just able to cut the packaging off of the cereal boxes or the food boxes to show her what her choices were for food and help her understand. So you can use objects, miniatures, or parts of objects to help enhance structure and communication. Dry erase boards are great because you can use those in different rooms of the house. You can create your lists with the dry erase boards. Magnet boards are using, a lot of the dry erase boards you can use magnets on as well. If having markers in the house creates a power struggle and an unpleasant situation, magnets might be, you could use your index cards and use magnets to put up what the list might be, and chalkboards as well. So I want to talk about efficiency and easy access. Again, coming back to the concept, this has got to be simple. If it's too complicated for us to do, then it's going to be too complicated for our kids to learn. And so we want it to be quick and easy. It becomes a part of our everyday life. It's something that we do naturally. And one of the things that we have available to us is the environment. And we can do things like dim the lights to communicate it's almost time for bed. And maybe we've been saying, okay, 5 minutes till bed, 3 minutes till bed, 2 minutes till bed, or we've been using our time timer to say in 10 minutes it'll be time for bed. And then when the red's all gone or the 1 minute is over, we just dim the lights. So we're not saying, okay, it's time for bed, which could be an automatic trigger for our kids. By dimming the lights, we're sending them the message that it's time to transition. And, pause, count to about 30, and you might be surprised to see your kids transition themselves. When it's time to, something as simple as holding up the toothbrush to communicate it's time to brush teeth. Sometimes words are not the most reliable way to send a message. So holding up that toothbrush to communicate it's time to brush your teeth. You can say it's time to brush your teeth as well. Keeping the sticky notes in the home, as I was talking about before. Another really great one is natural endings. When you start using natural endings, you start getting really good at finding where those live in your environment. But some things that we're probably already doing is when your show is over, it's time for whatever that transition might be. When I finish my coffee, then we will. So I wanted to show an example of, your show or my coffee. So, our kids getting their needs met, us getting our needs met as well. So using those natural endings that live in your environment. For my daughter, if she had to, when she was young, she had to see all the credits roll down to the bitter end. And so that was hard because a show wasn't over until it was over, and then you had to get right in there before that commercial or that next show popped in, because then it was starting, something else was starting. So we would still have that power struggle. So we had on demand, and that was like a godsend, because when the show is over, the show is over. It's a blue screen. So sometimes those things can be really, really helpful to provide those natural endings. All right, so effective communication. So this is where visual structure and support can come in to help enhance communication. And as I said earlier, we are our kids' interpreters to the world, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we also need our kids to be able to communicate when we're not around. So thinking about how you are that interpreter for your child and how you can start to give them some of that control over the communication and help them to be more easily understood, but then also help people understand how to give information to your child so they understand as well. And this is, again, this is for even our kids that communicate very reliably with words, excellent communicators. They still might not understand all the information. They might have a receptive language challenge, and they have the skill of pretending like they understand, but they don't really understand. So they're still missing information. So the visual support helps them with that receptive communication as well. So some examples here. I really think it's important to teach yes and no. Not necessarily as a first step, but within that process of teaching our kids and growing them up, yes and no is really important. And one of the things about no is, as parents, we don't always honor no. And I'm going to push back, and I'm going to say we need to honor no. And the reason why I say that is, again, our kids are not always going to be with us. They're going to be at school. They're going to be out with friends. They're going to be at the babysitter's house. They're going to be places where we're not there, and we want them to be able to protect themselves. And by allowing them to say no and honoring no as a valid way to. The thing about no is a signal to us that information might be missing. So when our kids are saying no to us, try not to see it as defiance. See it as, what's missing? What information do they need right now? So to try to understand their perspective when you hear no. And so yes and no are important. Being able to communicate for your basic needs. Here's an example of an object board. This is a basic needs board. Being able to spontaneously communicate. I want to go to the bathroom. I want to listen to music. I want to take a bath. I want to go to bed. This piece of tire right here represented I want to get on the tire swing. So this was where we met this child where they were at, but what will represent going outside of the house to have fun. So that's what that is. And then this is an example of what's called a choice wheel. And the reason why we sometimes use a wheel for choices is if our kids learn that a schedule goes from left to right or top to bottom, they might not make choices. They might see, if we present choices in a field of left to right or top to bottom, they might think it's a schedule. So choices can, on a wheel, help to cut down on the lines and get true choice. So if you, for example, do you want to go on a walk, do you want to jump on the trampoline, or do you want to play, with dominoes? Could be an example of choices that we might offer our kids, but also this is something that could live in the environment for that spontaneous communication as well. And then, just holding up, do you want milk or juice? So that using the objects in the environment. One thing about teaching communication that we need to understand as parents is that we are their interpreters. So we have the advantage of already knowing what they want most of the time. So use that. If we know that our kid never drinks juice, they only drink milk, so we only get them milk, go ahead and do you want milk or juice? Because you're teaching the process of making a choice. So it's okay to know what your kids want and then ask them if they, do you want ice cream or broccoli? Go for it, because you're teaching communication, you're teaching problem solving, decision making. So structure for effective communication. Structure for supporting independence, and you saw some of these examples already. These are called functional routines, and these are things that if practiced over and over again, they become memorized tasks. So we put the structure in place, and then eventually the structure is not necessary, or the structure looks different. So first we lay our kids' stuff out from left to right on the bed for them to get dressed, and then we move that from labeling their dresser drawers to, what dressing isn't our issue right now. Now we're worried about this. So eventually these functional routines, they just become the memorized routine, and you don't need a whole lot of, flash. You just need to lay stuff out from left to right and do things the same way every time. So in those morning routines, or those evening routines that some of you identified as difficult, try not to oh, well, sometimes we shower and sometimes we don't, or, sometimes we, have dinner at 7 and sometimes we have dinner at 9. So I'm asking you to try, because I know this is really hard, but try to keep things as linear and straightforward as possible. It doesn't always have to be at the same time. It doesn't always have to be in the same way. It doesn't always have to be with the same people. But if you can keep those difficult routines as structured as possible, then they become memorized routines, and you have less difficulty and more independence. So we're almost to, I'm going to go about 5 more minutes and then we'll get to questions here. So using those all-important questions, this is an example of just sitting down with your child and answering the questions with them. I've done this with quite a few families that I work with to really great success. We just have some little all-important question sheets that are like little worksheets that you keep in the kitchen or in the glove box, and then you sit down with your child. I've had this tool be very effective with kids that read and kids that don't read. So sometimes words are written down are okay. You don't have to have that picture. So for this example here, where am I going? Brother's karate practice. What am I doing? Listening to music on headphones while sitting on the bench. How much am I doing? 45 minutes on the timer. How will I know when I'm finished? When brother walks over and says, let's go. What's next? Go home and play computer. So this is a really common thing that I hear, that Siblings aren't able, they're missing karate practice, they're missing soccer games, they're missing graduations because their sibling is having difficulty with that transition. So here's an example of using the all-important questions to help actually meet brothers' needs to get to karate practice, and then the child who experiences disability has the information about what they can do and what they get when they get home. So some other things about supporting successful transitions, and a lot of this is we're recapping stuff we've already talked about. Using those natural endings wherever you can find them or create them. Using paper, sticky notes, dry erase boards to make those list schedules and routines. And I didn't put this in here, but using your phones. You can, all of us have some kind of note feature on our smartphones. So we can make just a little list on our smartphone with our kid, and they can be crossing stuff off. There's a great app called Do It Tomorrow. And that app, actually, you can make lists, and then when you press the thing on the list, it goes whoosh, and it crosses it off. So that would be a great tool for making a list. I hear a lot about shopping as being a really difficult time. I hear a lot of families leaving entire grocery carts full of food and just walking away from them. So one of the things that can really help for this is having that list at the grocery store. Have your child making a contribution to the shopping experience. So they are in charge of the list. They have to hold the list. They get to cross the stuff off the list. They get to find having them match the labels and put stuff in the cart, giving them a job, and have the very last thing on the list be something that they want to purchase. This does not need to be a toy. It doesn't have to be a DVD. It doesn't have to be something, a high-end thing. It could be a package of goldfish. It could be a banana. But whatever, make sure that the last thing on the list is something that they like to eat or something that they want to have. If it can be a toy, great, but it shouldn't have to be that. It shouldn't cost us a lot of money to do this stuff. So when our kids are going for the cookies and the crackers and those things that we don't want them to buy, we can bring them back to the list and be like, oh, remember, your thing is here at the end of the list. Let's get through the entire list, and then we'll get your thing. That last thing on the list could be your choice as well. And then offering choices at transitions. Do you want to go to bed now or in 10 minutes? Do you want to walk like a duck or a crab to go brush your teeth? Do you want to hand me my phone or put it on the table? So adding choices into some of those transitions, or even putting choices in at power struggles. This last example here is a real-life example with a parent where the son had broken a few of her phones, and he had her phone while I was there, and some kind of whispering to her, say, do you want to put the phone, put it on the table or give it to me? And she did it, and it worked. He put it on the table. So sometimes those choices can help give our kids a little bit of control over a situation where there's a power struggle. And as long as things aren't getting broken and nobody's getting hurt, it's okay to give our kids a little bit of power back. It's always okay to give our kids a little bit of power back. So we're going to go into questions, but what I want to leave you guys with today is when you think about that difficult time of day and where your child might be missing information, also think about the most successful time of the day with your child. What's happening when things are going well? And yeah, well, because they're doing what they want to do, sure. But what is it about them doing what they want to do that's working? What information do they have to be successful in that experience? Get clues from that. The other thing about that most successful time of the day is that is the very best time to teach the skills that you want your child to use at the most difficult times of the day. So that's where we would put a lot of this structure in place at the successful time of day, so our kids have a positive experience with it. So when we present a first-then routine at a difficult time of day, well, that's okay because they've already seen it at their most successful time of day. So the other thing is choose one thing at a time to add visual structure to. Try not to think, I'm going to, end this webinar and I'm going to go structure my entire day with these new amazing tools. Don't do that. Just pick one part of your day, and not even the most difficult time of your day. Just pick a part of your day where your stresses not quite as, heightened, where things might be a little rough. And try using some of these skills there. And what you'll find is the skills that you learn there, you and your child learn together there, are actually going to be things that become natural to you. You're going to use them in other parts of your day. Days are going to get easier as you use this visual structure. You'll find, you'll wake up one morning and be like, wow, you know what, a month ago I was laying his clothes out from left to right with the backpack at the end, and now he's just getting up and getting dressed on his own. When did that happen? So you'll start to see your kids, now that once they have the information, they take it and run. So don't be surprised if things go really well. However, don't expect this to be smooth and amazing. It might be bumpy, so allow that learning process to happen. And then the other thing too is teach skills in stages. So for example, if you want your child to learn how to communicate their wants and needs, but you can't teach them how to wait while you're also teaching them how to communicate for what they want and need. So spend some time, spend a week teaching your child to very clearly communicate using any of those levels of representation that we talked about to be able to communicate, I want a color, or I want to go out into the park, or I want to go to my friend's house, or whatever, and allow them to be able to communicate that and get their needs met. And then after they reliably are able to communicate that clearly, then say, oh, okay, I hear what you want, but we're going to need to wait for that. Or I hear what you want, but that can't happen today. Let's put that on the calendar. So try to teach in stages. Think about learning to wait for later or today or next month or next year as a stage 2 skill. Stage 1 is just being able to get your needs met reliably by communicating. All right, so we are now we're jumping into question mode here. So Jenny's going to let me know what some of the questions are that you guys have entered, and I'll do my best. Oh, no questions? Is everybody? Okay, then if you have, then I will give you a couple minutes to ask any questions. It's all perfectly clear. Will I be able to see him too? If I type something in the chat, will everybody get to see it? Okay. While you guys are thinking of your questions, some of the resources that I shared, I'm going to type some of those things in there as well. So I'm gonna, again, if something pops into your head as I'm talking here, please jump in with a question. So I wanted to let you know you found your way to this training somehow, and OTAC provides other parent trainings, and we have another webinar coming up in December 5th. And that's going to be an evening webinar. And that training is going to be on reinforcement systems. And the focus is going to be on why they don't work, but also talking about how to approach reinforcement systems, such as sticker charts, allowances, any kinds of reward-based systems. A new way of looking at those and thinking about those, and deciding, is this really right for our family and my child, but also understanding why they don't work so you can create a system that really will work for your family.
All right, well, thank you very much, Stephanie. And on behalf of the staff here at OTAC, we want to thank all of you, and hey, have a great day. That concludes our webinar, so goodbye, everyone.